Unofficial SF.
Sorry,
Unofficial
sorry,
SF.
Fred. I forgot to push the recording.
Oh yeah, no problem. So unofficial SF is the source of information of where I'm getting a lot of either the code itself or the information about packages that are out there. And I'll give you that reference so we can talk about that. So first, just some definitions here. You'll hear sometimes in the Salesforce world SOQL queries, right? So SOQL queries are really kinds of queries that developers use that involve really searching for data, really pulling data out of Salesforce, right? And there are some features for adding wildcards and having some flexibility in terms of what you're searching for. But SOSL is another search language in Salesforce, and it's really about fuzzy matching of text and a wide variety of fields you're searching across. It is the basis upon which the global search is used. So when you have that search bar in the top of Salesforce, that's kind of like a fuzzy kind of search, right? It's searching a lot of things. And it's not, it can even find things that are not exact matches, but are, conceptually close. So it is a really amazing feature. And so why am I talking about this related to flow? It's because there are some times when you might want to have a process, a defined process that users go through where you'd like to incorporate some fuzzy search. And so let me give you an example, because I think that really we think in use cases, right? So in this case, I've got Service Cloud, right? So this is the Service Console. Just to orient you, whenever we're looking at Salesforce, right, the top area in the middle tends to be the header, right? Some information about the case. I have a component on the right, again, my famous actions and recommendations, which is kind of a cool, like simple, cool component. All it does is set up to propose different quick actions or flows that I think are going to be useful to my users for this particular case, for this particular time, this particular stage, right? This particular status. And so I have a few different flows that can launch from here. But one of them is find related cases. So what is that? So my users came to me and they said, when we're working on a case, we want to find the related cases to this one. And it might be anything. It might be some word, it might be some code. So, it might be some error code or something like that. And we want to attach it. We don't want to just find it. We want to attach it to the case. Okay. So what I do is I just entered a search term, right? And it brought me up a bunch of cases, right? And I am showing certain information about those cases. And I can select a case or more than one. I've set it up so that it's flexible. I can do more than one. And say,
so Fred, can you go actually open the case and take a look and then come back to that list?
Absolutely. So I can open it up. Now it does open, you know what, I think I can adjust this. It is opening up in a new tab. I have to see if I can adjust that to be a sub tab, but
that's fine.
It's opening up in a new tab, but yes, so I can open up and look at it in detail. And in fact, of course, the fields that I select are important.
Yeah.
Here, this is, now in my case, in my org, a lot of cases are created from emails that come in. And so the description field is automatically populated with the email that came in. I can choose to wrap text. And so then I get the full email. This is the original creation of the case, at least. But yes, So then you can go ahead and say, okay, yes, I want to go ahead and attach them. And it will go ahead and attach them to the case. Okay. So that was this use case. Okay. That is, because users will come to you and sometimes they won't describe to you all that they're going to do, but they say, we want to find related cases. Now, I could have told them, okay, just use the global search, right? And type in your whatever special thing you want to search for. And I could say, well, if you want to just look at cases, then you can narrow it down to cases, right? But actually, when I do that in our org, we use cases also for internal cases. So internal means like our sales guy needs support from our solution engineer. And so they're going to send a request through cases. That's how they manage the requests, right? So we use cases for both internal and for our customers, right? So when a customer has a problem, they contact us. We use a service console and we're creating cases. But the customer support people only want to search their own kind of cases. Okay, so there already, whatever generic solution I have about searching is kind of not great. And then if I talk to them about, okay, well, why are you searching? What are you going to do next? Right? I think that's an important skill that both business analysts and Salesforce admins need, which is to say, okay, someone comes to you with a need, ask for more information, ask to understand the context, right? So they're saying, well, we don't just want to look at them. We want to attach them so that we know, okay, these are related. I want to be able to go back to it. Plus, when there's a change in shift, I want the other person to be able to see it. So there's a few reasons for wanting to have an attachment of those cases to each other, right? A link, right? So I'm going to go back to the presentation for just a sec before we get into the details of the flow. Okay, so what are the use cases? What are we talking about? So certainly keyword searches, right? So you want to do some sort of fuzzy search. This one has you specify an object. Okay, so this is the main object I'm going to be searching on. But you can add standard objects too. You can add other like account, contact, other standard objects. Okay. You might want to add, you might have existing flows where you want to add some ability to search for records, right? This also allows you to use variables, right? So I can take information that's already on my case, right? So if for some reason I wanted to use certain search terms already and just have it automatically present certain cases. For example, if I could have a flow that's embedded in the case page, right? Or any page, I could have a flow embedded there to present different possible related records without the user doing anything. If I decide that, in my business, for whatever reason, there are certain pick lists, which actually are very powerful, right? In terms of narrowing down what related cases, right? Or certain, maybe the subject or something like that, being able to use the subject, some short text field, right? And so I'm going to automatically feed a search and just present the user. So there are several reasons why you might want to use some sort of fuzzy search and a flow to be able to present them with the information and have them act on that information. Okay. And I will talk a little bit about Datatable, even though there's so much to talk about with Datatable. Datatable is an amazing component. Being able to present information in a table format in a flow and have people act on it. That is the second part of this flow. But let me show you, because I think seeing flows themselves is very helpful, right? So we want to see the technical details. So first thing is the screen, right? The first screen. Extremely simple. All I'm doing, and I could do something more sophisticated than this, but all I'm doing here is asking, and I'm specifying 3 search terms. You could have as many as, I'm not sure what the limit is in terms of number of search terms, but you can add more than that. I just decided on 3. And I set it up so that I'm asking them to do the formatting, but that might be a mistake. What might be better is to present them with 3 boxes, and I'll insert the commas, because this does require them to format things correctly. The next one is the Apex action, and this is what's installed from unofficial SF. This is the code, basically, that, or actually not from unofficial SF, sorry. This is the, this was actually made by Gravity Labs. So I found it through unofficial SF, but it's actually made by Gravity Labs, another company.
Fred, can you repeat what you said at the beginning for the recording purposes, your warning?
Oh, yes.
So
The
that's on
warning,
the recording? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
The warning is that I'm installing code from other people that is not Salesforce, right? And it's not my own developers. It's just other people in the community. Or even if you don't call it code, if you call it an unmanaged package, same thing, it is code. And so you really have to make sure you know what you're doing when you do that. And some examples of the issues that come up, a new Salesforce release could actually break the code, and now your flow won't work. That doesn't, I mean, in my experience, that hasn't happened too often with the packages I've installed, but that can happen. And when the developers, whoever they are, when they update, because there are really great people out there who are creating new versions of their code, and they get feedback and they create new versions of it. They create a package you can install. It's up to you to go see whether or not that package has been updated. They don't go out and tell you. They're not keeping track of you. You downloaded that on your own. You need to go back to them every once in a while and check. Okay. Some people will have set up like a quarterly reminder to themselves. Okay, go check, on the versions. Right. So yes, good reminder. Thank you.
If I can add just one more point to this, you check with your own company policies. Are you allowed to do this kind of engagement with community, open source code? Because some companies doesn't allow this. You can get in trouble if you do this kind of rogue on your own. But
that's another good reminder.
Yeah, all this has great value. I'm doing this all the time with clients who are willing to take this risk, and with all these notes from Fred.
Yeah. So another good reminder is about the policies in your company. Okay. So when we look at this particular, it's actually called, the actual name of it, they say get search with Apex, because Apex code is what's actually doing the work behind the scenes. So the first input you need to do is what kind of object, which object is your main object that you're searching. Okay, in my case, it's case. What fields do you want to return? Okay, so this is about what fields are we pulling, right? Where clause. Okay, so anyone who's familiar with SOSL queries, it is helpful to learn some, how to do SOSL queries in order to understand some of what it's asking for. In my case, it was very simple. I just wanted a certain kind of record type ID, right? I just want a certain type of record type for the case. I didn't want my internal cases, right? So this is the record ID of just my support cases. Okay. And then I'm not using some of these other features. Some of this is like be able to pass in, as opposed to a record collection, I could have a series of IDs that I'm searching on. So I could do that if I wanted to. I could bypass sharing rules so that it's able, the user is able to view cases that they wouldn't normally be able to. And then this is just, this is the actual query, the terms that you're searching on. But what I did was I'm passing in a formula, right? So, because what I actually did was take the output from the previous screen and put it into a, well, actually, I'm not sure that this is, yeah. It's actually directly from the screen component. Yeah, so I'm actually getting it directly from the screen component. But you could decide that you're going to take what they input and manipulate it, in which case you'd be creating your own variable and referencing that variable. And so there are, I should say that these different specific features, when I go to, so I should give you the path that I took. So a lot of times when I'm searching for new things, if I'm trying to do something in Flow and I can't, there's no way to do it, then I'll go to unofficial SF, because unofficial SF is an amazing site where, this is Alex Edelstein really leads this from the Flow team, because there are times when people really want something, but Salesforce, for Salesforce to put something out requires a lot of investment to make sure that this is stable and sustainable, and they feel like financially this is worth it to do, right? But they have people both within Salesforce and in the community who say, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this available for everyone, right? And so he and actually I don't even know all the people who run unofficial SF, but basically it's community led. They decide, okay, we're going to either highlight work people are doing, or we're going to post our own components that you can download. Now, this one was, I was searching for how to do fuzzy searches. And so I ran across this blog post, basically. And they're referencing Gravity Lab. Those are the people who actually created this. And then when I went there, actually this link doesn't work. So I just added a comment. I said, there's a direct link to the GitHub site. So this is the GitHub site. This is where you actually download the code to. Now this looks kind of scary. This is all the different components, right? But they do have a README, right? So they do have some explanatory text. It explains a little bit about it. It says, okay, if you want to install it, this is in production. But there's documentation here also. So if I click on that, this is a Google Doc they made up as support. And I noticed they also have just to make it easy for you, they also give you the direct link for the sandbox installation, right? And quick tip, if anyone doesn't know, if you only have a production link and you want to install in sandbox, you replace the word login here with test, and everything else be the same. You'll notice that's exactly what they're doing here. That's how you install in sandbox instead of production, if all you have is the link. But here they have a description of each of the options available in the flow to you and what they mean. And so this is a good reference. And then after I do the search and I've got a collection of records, that's when I present it to the users. And like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Datatable because it's an amazing feature, but it's kind of hard to believe this is not part of Salesforce. The idea that you can't, in a flow, you can't present users with a table of records, you know, and have them act on that table. It's kind of amazing. I'm not sure why, but this is from unofficial SF, and this unofficial SF has really taken responsibility for some of the different components. First of all, Eric Smith, who developed this, is amazing. He is in the community all the time. He's in the Slack, the Ohana Slack community, and if you're asking questions about Datatable in flows in the process and automation Slack channel in there, he responds to it directly. He's always creating updated versions, so it's kind of amazing. But it's basically a way of presenting a table of information, a collection, to the user, and giving you a very user-friendly interface, you know, for those of us who don't code, to just go ahead and pick what fields we want to show, you know, in the table, and even to give you a WYSIWYG kind of interface for how that might look, and then being able to set the column widths and all kinds of neat things you can do. You can decide to change the label, change the name of it, you know, allow editing, decide whether or not you want your users to be able to edit any of the fields here, right?
When you, just if you don't mind, when you allow them to edit a field, they're actually editing that field right on that table, or do they actually go, does it go into the actual record so they edit it?
That's a good point. And this gets into, you know, how flow, the way what flow is, and things I really haven't really talked about. You know, when you're doing things in flow, you're essentially doing things in like a temporary environment. And so that's where understanding things like variables, the concept of variables, is important. The idea that we call this a table, and it's called a table of cases, but really what it's doing is creating a temporary space where it's holding a bunch of information for you. And if it's a single record, it might be called a record variable. But if it's a bunch of records, you know, it'll be called a collection, like a collection variable. And it won't do anything to the database itself, you know, to the data in Salesforce until you tell it to. So yes, it's collecting that information, but you'll see when I go down to advanced, manually assign the variables, that these are the outputs from this screen flow. So it can give you it'll give you a collection of which are the edited rows, which are the selected rows, how many selected records were there, how many edited records were there. And then it's up to you to then first of all, you can add decision elements, right? Decision elements decide what you want to do based on what users did in this screen. And then in my case, I'm taking them and creating a loop and creating the records that I needed to create, creating the links is what I need to create. Now, I'm not allowing them, in my use case, they're not allowed to edit the cases. So there's no updating of the case here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but you could if you wanted to. All I'm doing is creating related records. Okay, so I've talked a bunch, and I wanted to make sure to share what I learned. But one of the things I also wanted to encourage is for people, other users in the group, to just share things that they've picked up on and learned. You know, talk to Nash, talk to Kevin. I think David, you're the one who said you've got like, is it 8 or 18 different orgs?
Eight, but eight's enough.
Like, I would love to hear a presentation about, God, what is that like? And what do you have to do when you have that many different orgs? But anyway, I will share this handout, of course, and there is lots of cool information out there. There's an automation hour, which is all about, at least part of it is about SOSL and Flow. Link to the GitHub, and link to Datatable, since I mentioned that. I also went ahead and added some, since I mentioned actions and recommendations, some blog posts about that, just to explain a little bit more. Questions?
First of all, that is so good. Thank you so much. Didn't even know this all could happen. That's really great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
What was the name of the search appliance again?
So the actual Apex code, the way it's referred to in the Apex action is, what do they call it? They called it get/search with Apex. And if you go to the GitHub, I navigated away from it here. What did they call it here? In GitHub, this is what they called it. So it doesn't even mention SOSL here. But we will share the presentation, so you'll get the links.
Yeah, I just wanted to praise you, Fred, how you break it down. It's very clean and friendly way to say all of those things, to introduce to admins who are not technical. Good job there.
Thanks. And I know, look, if you've never done flows before, then honestly, a lot of this will be kind of foreign. And we, if anyone is new and wants some one-on-one help, I'm happy to help you to find some resources to help you get started.
If people doesn't have questions, I will give you another use for data tables that is fulfilling gap that Salesforce have with standard flow of components. When you're doing something like record types and you want to filter your lookups and put filtering on your lookup record when you're trying to select something, and it works great in UI when you're doing this and your user using standard pages. This doesn't work in the flows, because lookup in the flows doesn't respect any of those setup filters that you have on your configuration for this field. This is great, another use for data tables, because then you can present them with the filtered results of the data table based on record type that they are sitting on and conditions that are built in the same way how you have it on original field there. Or there is another component that you can install from there. But advantage of having data table versus another lookup component is you get more flexibility in selecting what is presenting to user. You can do multi-selection. You can do one selection. You can do so much things. Your creativity is just blowing away how you deal with your users and what you're showing them. And no code at all. It's all flows and be creative in the flow. You need to have a little mindset of the developer to get this up and running, but you can pre-select fields based on conditions. When you run the screen in your flow table, it would be selected some records, but not all of them, depending what you're doing. And people can adjust and go for next step, and then you do your work based on whatever they selected. But another great use of data table that is fulfilling gaps at the moment on the flow.
I'm not finding it. I was just looking for the unofficial SF has their own lookup component also, which is really cool, and which you can even reference and filter by another lookup component. I thought it was called quick lookup, but I'm not finding it here. But anyway, so
Yeah, you're right. There is another one that has respecting record type filters and all those kind of things. I think it's also made by Eric.
it might be, yeah.
I don't know what his name of it, but it's supposed to be lookup something. Better lookup or something.
So can I ask one suggestion just to tie this back? Can you go back to your use case and point out very clearly which one is the data table and which one is the
Oh, in the flow itself, or in the actual flow in the.
so that find related cases, is that the SQL or SOSL?
It's got both. So it's got SOSL. So this, when it goes find related cases, if I oops, if I enter a term, the next step is it's doing behind the scenes was the SOSL.
Okay.
And what it's presenting visually is data table.
Okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
That's good, and that is confusing. Yeah. So the SOSL feature, the search, the fuzzy search, is operating behind the scenes. You don't see anything.
Hey Fred, just one feedback for you. You think your users was enough smart to remember what they were searched for? Why you didn't give them box here to say you use those keywords or something?
Yes, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Just to say, give them feedback, remember about, okay, this is based on these search terms. Yeah, easy to pass. Good idea.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay,
Right.
so we're sorry, Nash, go ahead.
No, I just want to improve Fred's work, you know.
Thanks, everyone.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Fred?
Nope, it was a great presentation. Thanks, Fred.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
for
Fred,
those who works in government institutions or somebody like Shopify, who has big policies now in place and developer teams and IT structure that needs to follow policies, you need to run installing those free things by them before you do things. But you can do in Sandbox whatever you like, do your proof of concept, make your use case, tell them why is this good free thing. My experience is that it's all this Salesforce unofficial is fairly stable and up to date, and I didn't see issues so far.
That's a good
okay,
idea.
so I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to introduce Eric. So first, well, let me just stop the recording just a second here. Stop.